Well, welcome to the RSC's Right to the Point podcast. Today we have two very special guests with us. Both are freshman members of the Republican Study Committee. Well, Mr. Stutzman used to serve in Congress, but he came back to us. But we have Mr. Rep. Brad Knott of North Carolina, and we have Rep. Marlin Stutzman from the great state of Indiana. Welcome to the podcast, both of you. We're going to be talking about the DHS shutdown and the implications that we're seeing across the country. Just this week, I know that we were all looking on Twitter and on the news this weekend. We saw the TSA lines are out the door at airports across the country. I saw one that was in Austin that was wrapping around the whole entire building. Can we both get your thoughts on that? If you're seeing that at your local airport, are you seeing members of your community? Are they reaching out to you saying that they're not getting their paychecks? Are there members of the Coast Guard in your district or constituents that are like, this needs to end now?
First to the RSC, thank you for having us, Marlon. It's always great to be with you. And there are various levels we could go at here, but in terms of the immediate effects that are being felt, you hit a lot of the high marks there. I certainly have a fairly heavy military constituency in my district. Those constituents are working hard, especially in the Coast Guard. We are in a kinetic war right now in Iran. We have risks all over the world. They're looking at the United States. We have adversaries in the country. And the thought that we would not be funding the Department of Homeland Security, given all of the risks that we currently face, is just unconscionable to me, Marlon. It really is. And of course, there are issues of convenience for members of the public. My mom took a flight this morning. The TSA line was 3, 4, 5 times what it should have been because those civil servants are not getting paid. So there's a lot of different layers here. And it all goes back to the Democrats really playing politics with our national security. And it's something that I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around, candidly.
Yeah, no, Brad, I agree. It's just such an unnecessary shutdown. The Democrats like to say that the attacks in Iran is a war of choice. Well, this is a shutdown of choice because the Democrats just decided that they want to make somehow embarrass Republicans, somehow embarrass President Trump. They think this is some sort of leverage that they're going to get something out of this. I think they've really walked themselves into their own trap, but they don't know how to get out because they're saying, well, this is about ICE and immigration. Well, this has nothing to do with ICE and immigration. ICE is already funded. DHS, it's our homeland security. I mean, it is exactly what the department is described as. It's security for the homeland. And whether it's TSA agents, Coast Guard, FEMA, we're seeing, in fact, in my region, just recently, we had some very deadly tornadoes in northern Indiana and southern Michigan. And, we're counting on emergency responders to be able to do what they need to do to help recover and to help those who are in need. And the only people that Democrats are really hurting here are the American people, the citizens of our country that pay their taxes, go to work, do what they're supposed to do. And they just expect the government to, in turn, to serve the people as we expect them to. And so Democrats have made an awful mess out of this. And of course, with the attacks in Iran, which I fully support President Trump and what he's doing, to keep America safe for decades to come by taking out the Iranian regime, we're starting to see these sleeper cells, these copycat actors, these sole actors. We saw the attack on Old Dominion University, where there's an individual that shot some students, and thankfully the students that were there on the campus were part of taking this shooter down. And of course, the ISIS sympathizer up in Dearborn, Michigan, that drove a truck into a synagogue. And there's others that are happening across the country as well. And I tell you what, Democrats are playing a very dangerous game by keeping Department of Homeland Security defunded. Thank you to all of those who are still showing up for work, doing their job because they know that they're called to serve the American people, and they're doing it without a paycheck. We owe them a great debt of gratitude for doing the right thing when the Democrats are doing the wrong thing. So it's unfortunate that Democrats are playing politics with our own security in this country, rather than sitting down, figuring it out, and realizing that we can work together to make sure that the American people are safe.
Right. You raised a good point, Marlon. When in my old job, I was very involved with the border. I worked on organized crime investigations, and I saw how wide open the border was under Biden and Harris. And they did the same thing then that they're doing now. They're playing politics at the expense of our own security. And what do I mean by that? If you're an adversary of the United States, why wouldn't you have exploited the wide open border that was designed by the Democratic Party over the last 5 years? I'm talking about China. I'm talking about Russia, countries in the Middle East like Iran, even obviously the cartels in South America. We know that the open border under Joe Biden was exploited. And we have a firm count of people that came across the border that we came into contact with in terms of we know the number. But what we don't have a firm count on is who came by that evaded detection. And there were hundreds of miles of border that were not patrolled, they were not surveilled, and the most sophisticated actors, without any question, came into the country without being detected because it was that wide open. And your concern about sleeper cells is unbelievably well-founded. Again, we know that terrorists are in the country right now. We know that there are bad actors from the northern African countries, the Middle Eastern countries. We know that there are thousands from China that are wanting to harm the United States. And a big tool that we have is the Department of Homeland Security. And when we have a sensitive situation like what's going on in Iran, we have a very real risk of sleeper cells being activated like we are already seeing. You mentioned some of the attacks. I unfortunately believe there will likely be more attacks. And to shut down the department over some sort of feigned immigration principle, it's beyond the pale. And my question to you is, what is it exactly that the Democrats are looking for with immigration? What's the point they're trying to make? My position, from where I sit, my view, they don't want any deportations. They don't want any enforcement. I mean, here the president is trying to remove people who are dangerous to the country, and the Democrats are shutting DHS down over that proposition. So again, I don't know what to say about it. I'm very frustrated. Americans are paying a price, and it's time that this stops.
Yeah, and I hope, Brad, that people are really paying attention and realizing who is keeping the Department of Homeland Security closed, or even though people are showing up and still doing their job, but they're not getting paid, that it's the Department of Homeland Security that was founded right after 9/11. George W. Bush created the Department of Homeland Security for this particular reason: this threat of jihad, this threat of terrorism, the threat that we know is inside this country, and especially in relation to the war with Iran. They saw this as an opportunity. People say, "Well, you guys are starting a war with Iran." No, Iran has been at us. Terrorists have been coming into this country through open border policies, and that's why Department of Homeland Security is such a critical component to being able to track where these people are, to stop and keep our communities safe. And so, again, I think the Democrats are just playing a very dangerous game here. And, to me, it just doesn't make sense. And I think that's why this next election, it's about common sense versus crazy, because it doesn't make any sense to not pay the men and women who are serving the country to keep each of us safe on a daily basis. It doesn't make any sense to just simply shut down the department that's supposed to protect us from terrorist activity. It's already hard enough because with open border policies that these people are already in the country. And so we need to make sure that our men and women have the tools they need and the pay. I mean, and that's the other thing. I mean, these are not the highest paying jobs in the country. There's a lot of these folks that are depending on their checks to pay their mortgage, to pay the rent, to make sure they've got groceries and the car payments are made. And so by taking a couple of weeks pay away from them, it just disrupts their lives, and they may have to go find other jobs.
That's right. And, it's interesting. There's several ways that our adversaries can attack us, Marlon. Obviously there are people who can bring weapons, like we saw in New York. They tried to throw a bomb that would have maimed and wounded dozens, possibly killed just as many. There's cyber attacks on infrastructure. There are sleeper cells that could deploy drones. And the Department of Homeland Security protects against each one of those threats. And The idea, again, that we are in a kinetic action, a kinetic military conflict in Iran right now, and the Democrats are making a point not for any principle, but for a political posture. Uh, Again, I don't know what to say about it. And we know that it's not about reasonable immigration policy. Reasonable immigration policy is something along the lines of, if you are here illegally, please take the cash payment, return home, and then try to come back legally. Not one Democrat will take that position, right? They won't even say that. They will say, we will go to bat for you to stay here indefinitely, regardless of whether or not you are a known criminal or you just arrived with no criminal record. We know that because they are actively releasing people already in jail rather than handing them over to ICE or Border Patrol. So I think that the motivation is actually far more sinister. It's not for an immigration system that removes people who are here illegally. It is to disrupt and frustrate this administration from enforcing the immigration laws. And unfortunately for the country, it comes at a very dangerous time.
Yeah. And, President Trump, he made that commitment during his campaign that he was going to close the border, secure the border, and deport those who were here in this country illegally that came across open borders. And, I think it's very, hypocritical on the Democrats' part. Under President Obama with Tom Homan deported about 3.3 million people during his administration. And so they're somehow acting like this is all new policy for the American immigration system. It's just not. And President Trump hired Tom Homan, who does a phenomenal job handling the immigration cases. I've talked to him personally. He's got a tough job. Of course, Homeland Security Director, with the change from Kristi Noem now to Mark Wayne Mullen, that's a very difficult job. And to go into these departments without it being funded just simply ties their hands. Now they think that this is affecting their political opponents, when in reality it's affecting the American people directly. And I tell you, I hope, Brad, that there is not more serious. These are already very serious attacks just in the last couple of days that we've seen. But heaven forbid if something major happens. And again, I think it would just all point back to the fact that the Department of Homeland Security didn't have the tools and the support that they need. And this shouldn't be a partisan issue. This should be a bipartisan issue, that we're going to keep the American people safe. And that's one of the things even from a political standpoint, I just simply don't understand the Democrat Party, that they're willing to go to the wall to defend illegals, people who are illegally in this country, who don't have the right to vote, who don't have the right to welfare programs, education systems, healthcare systems, but they do. And the Democrat Party is, instead of going and fighting for the American people on a daily basis and trying to find solutions, proper solutions on a bipartisan basis, they simply play politics and just take the funding away from the very people that put their lives on the line for us every day.
That's right, and I know you're aware of this, but we've had so many hearings in the Department of Homeland Security where we detail from experts the type of threats that the department protects the United States from. And the obvious threats are the presence of terrorists in the country, people who are trying to get into the country, attacks in the country that happen or originate outside of the country, think cyber or some other type of harassment from China, Iran, etc., whether they attack infrastructure, banking institutions, small businesses. And the Department of Homeland Security is set up to be a nimble advocate for our own safety here in the United States. And when the president decided to act decisively against Iran, 100% that commenced aggressive efforts to weaken and to scuttle the effort in the United States. I guarantee you the attacks are going up. The risk of attack is going up. The severity of the attacks or the intended attacks is going up. And the Democrats could not care less. You know as well as I do. And Speaker Johnson has made the Republican conference open for a vote to push this opening back in, to open up the Department of Homeland Security. The Democrats are not answering the call. They're playing politics at a time that is perhaps the most dangerous for our country in the last 10 years. And again, I stand with you. I'm absolutely miffed at how reckless this is. I pray that we do not have continued attacks. We've already had numerous attacks that are tied to this, and the Democrats need to get off the political sphere and get back into D.C. and open this department back up.
Can y'all also say your right opinion real quick, or what your hot take would be, if you have one?
So I'll start with the hot take. I've got two things that I want to celebrate for my home state of North Carolina. First, North Carolina has some of the finest golf courses. Pinehurst gets all the credit, but our golf courses from the mountains to the coast are as good as anywhere in the world. And secondly, I'll put a plug in for North Carolina seafood, whether it's our shrimp, our flounder. We've got great tuna. We got the full gambit of seafood. So North Carolina, whether you want to play golf, enjoy playing seafood, and of course our barbecue, people need to come and visit.
Well, I tell you, I'm going to try to match that. Hot take from Indiana is, of course, we're still celebrating the Indiana Hoosiers winning the National Football Championship, first time ever. Some of us fans that didn't even realize that Indiana football was a big deal now realizes that the world knows how great the Indiana football comeback and that whole story was. It is. And then, of course, we don't have the great seafood like you do, Brad, but boy, come to Indiana for some good pork and some good beef. And we are always up for a good pork tenderloin in Indiana. So I appreciate North Carolina. We've got a lot of similarities between our two states, and they're two great American states. So it's an honor to serve. Well, hey, Brad, thanks. I'm glad we got to have this conversation. Appreciate RSC organizing this for us. And it's always good to hear from you and other colleagues and how this is affecting your district and my district and around the country. And I'm looking forward to continue to fight for the American people to get good government operating, and of course support the RSC's efforts to support Speaker Johnson and President Trump. We've got a lot of work in front of us, and so I appreciate the opportunity to be in the fight with you.